Inception. Watching a stream of a stream. It says we're going live at 9:58. I don't know why I would have set it to 9:58 instead of exactly 10, but here we are. Welcome to our regular Thursday stream. Slightly different one this time. And we're doing a bit of a special this time. I've got some games from the Indie Game Academy, which I believe is a boot camp for people that want to make indie games. So thanks for sending those over. And I think we might get some of the devs or some of the folks from Indie Game Academy over in the stream today. My understanding is Indie Game Academy is running a stream today at the same time. So if you end up in multiple streams, then have fun with that. I can barely operate more than one game in a stream, so I'm feeling ill. I've been ill all week. Those of you who joined me for my dev stream on Tuesday will know there were some epic sneezes. I will do my best not to do that today, or if you see me occasionally whack my mic away over there, it's because I've run to the other side of the room to do a massive sneeze. Today we are checking out 3 games from the Indie Game Academy. They are called Whiskers, Wizards and Wands. I think I got that in the right order. The Box is Alive and Daughter of the Rift. And there are itch versions of these games. I think I've tried to put them... There's a Steam demo for Whiskers, Wizards and Wands. There are demos on itch for Daughter of the Rift and The Box is Alive. And you can check those out whenever. And I'm going to be checking the demos out today and maybe taking a quick look at the Kickstarters. Yeah, we'll see how much time there is. This stream normally runs for 2 hours. We might have a bit of time to go kind of long today. For some reason, when I go on my multi-stream chat, it's not showing me everything, but when I go on YouTube, it shows me everything. So I think... Hi, Willem. I think I've... oh, it's working now. There we go. I just needed to reconnect it. Okay, so we've got 3 games to look at, and I just want to give like a very, very first impressions, even just on the title and stuff, before we dive into the actual demos, because I think that can be quite helpful. I've got Audacity open. What was I making sound effects of? That's what I was doing all yesterday evening, dropping rock sounds up. So yeah, going straight to Kickstarter, very interesting. I've taught Kickstarter before, but we used to do it with first-year students as like a mock thing, just to get them to think about like how games are funded and what a pitch looks like and stuff. And we did have pitches come through for these games, but I don't like to review pitches on this channel because I think the issue with pitches is you don't know what the technical capacity of the team is, so they can say, yeah, we're going to do this, and it's like, well, can you? There's always that issue. But we will look at the Kickstarters after we've looked at the games themselves. I'm more interested in the builds than the Kickstarters. And if you've been following along with my podcast, I have a podcast called The Game Developers Library, where we look at various books that are either directly about game development or helpful to game developers. And we're looking at Up, Down, Up this month, which is very much a book about running a company, a game development company. And there's a concept in there called the proven and the promise. Like what you say you're going to do and what you've already done. And basically when you make a promise to a publisher or a Kickstarter audience or whoever, you say, we're going to make this, we're going to spend the next year or the next 5 years making this thing. Success is a result of how clearly related that is to what you've already proven you can do. And I think that's interesting. I think that's a really helpful way of thinking about things, which is why I also don't review game design documents anymore as well. So I used to do that as a service. I don't do it anymore because someone's document saying, yeah, I'm going to do this, and no sense of what that person or their team can actually achieve technically or creatively is just not helpful. That it's only as helpful as your kind of knowledge of yourself and what you can do. So we're going to check out the games first. We've got The Boxes Alive, which is an interesting name. Immediately intrigues me. I think that's going to be a sillier game. We've got Whiskers, Wizards and Wands, lovely bit of alliteration. And then we got Daughter of the Rift, which is an interesting title because that kind of feels to me like it kind of takes itself very seriously, narrative game kind of type title. I'm going to start with Daughter of the Rift, actually, I think, because that is the one where I feel like least like I know what it's going to be. And if this is Unity, it is going to do its classic thing of trying to open on the wrong screen. Because that's what Unity does lately for me. Every game I open on the stream that's Unity opens on the wrong screen. I mean, if we hit right, if this is on Kickstarter and we hit a game-breaking bug in the demo build, I'll just stop playing it and moving on. I'm not going to ask you questions about it. And quite frankly, the fact that the developers haven't come for what is basically a critical teardown session. Not interested in going back and forth with their teacher about their work, if they want help with what they're doing, then great. But the nature of this stream is to give people pretty unfiltered feedback on whether what they're doing is good or not. Come on, let's get this working. It's just flat won't open. Here we go. I've probably opened it 5 times now. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, unfortunately, it's the only time of the day I can do these, so I've tried to move them to other times, but this is kind of where they end up being. Okay. Daughter of the Rift. We got some cartoony stuff. I quite like this art style, but to me, it's kind of... My first impression is that this is quite a playful art style, and that means that when I look at an art style like this, I don't expect to get loads of narrative content. I just expect to get some sort of interesting action or strategy gameplay, because this is a very playful art style that doesn't make me necessarily care about these characters as people. So I know that this is a narrative game from what I saw. We'll see what the kind of first impressions are. This makes no sense. We've gone on every mission together involving the Rift since the first one. You know the one. Oh, I know the one. Don't be cute, seriously, Win. Something feels off. Do you think they know? About us? How could they? No, it's just a routine mission. I'm gathering intel, that's all. I like the character designs. I like the sort of exaggerated different bodies and the kind of interesting colours and stuff. It's just, we're almost free. I don't want anything to happen. Grecian, this isn't goodbye. Nothing is going to happen. I'll be back before you know it. And then we'll start the rest of our lives. The music is a little bit too intense for a situation where you're expecting someone to read a lot. I think that's something worth thinking about from a UX perspective. It's like... Yeah, when people are reading, banging snare drums in the background is not always a good combo. Promise. Anwin pulls Grecian into a playful embrace. while holding her sword and her gun. Or his sword and gun. Look at me, of course, I promise. The pear kiss. Okay. A cell block door slams shut and a sleeping Grecian is joined awake by the clang. Jolted awake, sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. No, it's fine. Did they suspect anything? No, I don't think so. You have to be sure. I'm sure. So you have his file then? Aye. Bram, do you have his file or not? I have not wasted 16 years, gotten this far. Easy, I have it, boy. This Anwen guy must really be something special. You know how you would do anything for your boy. I'm gonna skip through some dialogue. I'm not really interested in reading this. I'm interested in seeing what the interactivity is. Okay, we have some combat now. That was a lot of dialogue before we get to the game. I thought for a while it was going to be... Again, I'm going in blind. I'm trying not to look at the synopsis of the game before I play it, just see what the game for what it is. But for a moment then, I thought we were going to get like a visual novel with no choices. I was a bit worried. Thanks, Cake. Yeah, I think I've got Fullerton's book in the backlog. You may rearrange heroes before starting. Okay. I mean, this is a weird thing to tell me because I don't have a context for why I'd want to do that. Left-click a card to add to the current set. Right-click anywhere to return the last card to your hand. Left-click a few cards to see what happens. Okay. Okay, so we're playing multiple cards at once. Something weird happened there. Hi Bulldogo, this is the regular... I do Indies Under the Knife every Thursday, so this is games that have been sent in from sort of all over the place. But this time we have 3 games that have come through Indie Game Academy, so they've come from a boot camp. I'm clicking cards, I'm adding them to a queue of sorts. There doesn't seem to be a clear way to trigger. I will restart it and give it one more chance, but... This feels like this game has been made backwards, and I will explain what that means in a minute. I think I've got it open multiple times. I think that's part of the issue. I think maybe... I even had the music of one build running under the other. Let's go back and try it one more time. But yeah, I don't... if something doesn't work, I tend not to give it... I'll give it one extra try, but... Yeah, tutorial design really needs to just be... Tell you to do a thing, then you do a thing. And like... Every time you say, every time you kind of give an instruction and explain why you're doing it and then say something else after, you're giving people opportunities to forget things or to focus on the wrong thing. So tutorial design always just needs to be, do this now, then you do it. Do this now, then you do it. And then maybe some explaining what happened afterwards if necessary. But at the moment, what I'm feeling... I want to get past the tutorial because sometimes you get like a broken tutorial instance and then the actual core game is okay, but this feels a bit like a game that's been built backwards with focus in the wrong places, and I'll talk about what I mean by that after we've got through the tutorial if we can. So you can rearrange heroes before, but we don't know why you'd want to. I can put cards in a queue and then click the enemy and they attack. There's some nice little kind of anime style character rush animation when they do the attack. Select a target to submit the cards and perform the actions. You can submit one action set of cards for each hero on your team. Okay. I can't see any sort of resource management that would stop me from not using all the cards. Okay. It's kind of giving slight sort of Bucky O'Hare kind of vibes. And Awesome Noughts is the other thing that springs to mind. He's dead, but he's still there. Yeah. Oh, okay. I end the turn. Victory, got some XP. So we had that really heavy audio when we were reading the intro, and then nothing else. I just don't care about any of this enough at this stage. So we get a story, we get a combat, we get a story. This is just more of the same enemies. I don't really know enough about what they do to sort of look at what I'm doing and try and cross-reference it enough to feel like I'm making a tactical decision. I can see this guy has a slightly bigger gun, so maybe I'll try and kill him first, I guess. I also can't... Yeah, I don't really understand why I would not just use all of my cards. There seems to be some sound. There's like a little clicky sound for certain things confirming. But yeah, we don't seem to have any of the like... Very, very quiet. There we go. Is this on like a logarithmic scale or something, this audio thing? Range and edge effects, okay. Match 3 to do 1 extra damage. Okay, so I need to look at the tooltips a little bit. That's draw a card. If I do... So if I do 3 melee attacks on him, it says I'll do 1 extra damage because I match 3 melee attacks. Okay, so that rule isn't triggering the way it sort of seems like it will do. Move, I guess, swaps the order of them, kind of like Rogue Book, so the one in front takes more damage, so maybe I want to do that. It's not very responsive in terms of like showing me what is going on with some of these moves. I've just got all moves. And I can't end the turn. I can't decide not to use the cards, which feels a bit weirdly restrictive. Okay. Okay, so this is who is going to hit them. Okay, I see. You can move out of the space they're attacking to. Okay, that's neat. That's a nice idea. I mean, the thing about the Darkest Dungeon comparison is, in Darkest Dungeon, you can't put them in any forward position. If you only have 2 people, they default to the front. And that is one of the reasons why they introduced the corpse mechanic. They introduced the corpse mechanic like halfway through development, and it was deliberately to counter the fact that if you broke the formation, it just made the game too easy if you were already winning, or too hard if you were already losing. So there's a slightly different puzzle going on here. Like, you see which space they're attacking and then you move out of it. I quite like that. I think that's interesting. The game is just not really responsive enough in terms of what's going on with these cards. So that is a move, but I can't end the turn. Like, I don't want to move. Okay, that was a draw card. Okay, we're gonna melee attack this guy, but I can't for some reason. It's really, really unresponsive and unclear how things work. Yeah, I mean, Willem, just to give you a bit of a foregrounding of like how this channel works, and you will already see it happening in the chat. Like, we tend to be like quite critical here, and not of like, we try and treat games how they, you know, look at games for what they are and try and think of like what's the way that this game could be a better version of itself. But the problem that I'm seeing with this is that what I've got in front of me now has been sacrificed to building all of that intro story sequence. And the art looks cool. I think the art is a good fit for the style of game. I think the kind of playful, slightly character driven, but not too much, that is a good fit for this kind of card game. But the fact that we've got all of that story and then the card play doesn't feel particularly nice. It's not always clear what I can and can't do. And then we've got these big like red highlights and stuff. And I think the thing about a game like this is understanding that the thing that the player is interacting with is the cards, right? So in terms of the order of priority for making the game work, you actually want all of this to look and feel really nice, and like these to have nice graphic design and stuff like that, and kind of clear. At the moment it's a set of abstract symbols. This card is designed in a way that I would expect to see a card if I was playing a paper prototype of it, or if I was playing like a tabletop simulator prototype of a game. It's not a card I expect to see in a game that looks like this, because these characters look like final art. And I understand that in the practicalities of like doing a team project, you sometimes just get further along with the art than you intend to, because everything's moving at different speeds and stuff. But I would expect a lot more polish to be put into the cards, because that's the thing that I am interacting with as a player. And I can kind of see what the game is going for gameplay-wise. But another thing is, you know, generally speaking, if I hit a point in a demo like this where the game is broken and it won't let me progress because I can't end the turn or something, I will just stop playing it, because that's usually a point where, you know, other players would stop playing it. So it's kind of silly to press on, because the feedback you'll get from any human being at this point is, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore, this isn't fun. But also it just kind of shows that the thing should have been tested a lot more. And I think, yeah, putting something up that's in that state up on Kickstarter is, I don't know, I wouldn't be happy with that. I think yeah, it's a slightly uncomfortable conversation, but I don't think I think Kickstarter is for proven projects that people have said, yeah, this is really good, I want this to be a full game. And I don't really understand how people would have got to supporting that on Kickstarter from playing that if they played it. They might like the idea of it, but it's busted and it's got polish in the wrong places. And there are some interesting gameplay ideas there. They are backloaded after loads of story that I kind of don't care about until I find out what kind of game it is. Yeah, it's just an odd project. I played that one first because I kind of had a gut feeling that that was the one that I would be least hot on, because, yeah, I don't know, just maybe trying to push in too many different directions and be a story game and be a card game and stuff, and just that's why you've ended up with such uneven levels of polish. Thanks, Tuna. Yeah, kind of pretty helpful feedback in the chat as always, but you're making a card game. You got to put a lot of effort into making the cards feel like a nice tactile thing and not rectangles on a screen. I think a lot of people do that. They go, "Oh, we'll make a card game because that'll be easy. It's just rectangles moving around." No, you're trying to capitalize on the fact that people know and use cards in real life, and in order to do that, they need to feel like cards, and they need to swish around and do card stuff and look like they have the graphic design of a playing card. You know. Sorry. Ill. Okay. Hold W or S to roll around in the desired direction based on how we're looking at the box. So this is our kind of I am bread type thing, but we are a box. So I can roll, and I need to move the camera to the right angle in order to roll. That feels pretty good. That's pretty good controls. I haven't played an I Am Bread. It's kind of the game that a style of game I end up watching people play rather than play myself. And the camera feels a little bit sluggish moving left to right. I'll just see if there's an option for that. There we go. I'll just turn that up. So quiet again. Just going to turn everything up a bit. Music is a good fit for the style of game. The music is giving kind of playful, goofy vibes. Sort of silly, but also kind of like a sort of like Austin Powers music, like espionage funk, like I'm on a little mission. That's a really good observation, Tim. Yeah, everything's kind of boxy, and then we've got the kind of slightly more silly, goofy, bubble retro text. It feels very cohesive in terms of the creative direction here. Like that, I can hear that music and then look at that text, and those things go together to me. This is why it's so important to like take reference points from outside of games for this, because I really feel like this. The kind of font choices and the graphic design of the interface and the music all feel like they're working together here to make something that is better than some of its parts, which is cool. We got round. Hey! Left. Oh, I thought I was going to fall down then. Press left or right to open the flaps to be able to... Okay, you can open... You've got a flap on each side that is controlled by each mouse button. That's great. Look, and there's like company slogans on each side of the box that correspond to the button you're clicking. Never left behind, right on time. I don't envy whoever has to localize those puns, but that's very good. Really good. This is good stuff. And I think a thing that this game is doing very, very well is... there's this kind of concept of like when you make a demo for something, in the first couple of minutes, you basically want to answer the questions or concerns that a sort of intelligent fan of that genre would have, right? Remember, you're never going to make a game for everyone. So you need to work out who your game is for and then make the perfect game for them. So if you imagine someone that liked I Am Bread, right? They're going to look at this and they're going to say, okay, it's like I Am Bread, but we're a box. What do we get from being a box? What's special about being a box? And we've introduced the movement mechanics for like about a minute, and then we're onto this kind of flap mechanic, which answers that question, right? It answers that question. And if you could think of all of the questions or concerns someone might have about the demo of your game, there's a bunch you can rule out because they're just from someone who wouldn't like the game, right? Like, why would I want to be a box? That's stupid. Like someone that doesn't get the sense of humor. We don't care about answering that question with our demo or our pitch or our trailer or anything. But the question of what makes this different from I Am Bread, or what makes being a box, you know, mechanically interesting, because sometimes if you're going to make the players a ball or a cube or something, it comes across as a cop-out. It comes across as like, oh, you just did that because it was an easy art asset. But this flippy flappy mechanic is just immediately kind of countering that potential criticism. Really, really good. Really, really good. I can't get up here. Right, press left or right click in the air to double jump. Okay. It's turning into a Boxtroidvania now. And I don't know, people that watch the channel regularly will know that I like silly, but often when games are like rage games, like getting over it and stuff, I kind of tend to find them a bit tedious, but there's something very, very pleasing about trying to learn this control system. It sort of reminds me a little bit of Octodad. Okay, we're gliding over the next bit. Very hard to read the text and talk at the same time. While in the air and flat, hold space or both, click both to glide. Okay, you're giving me some control options as well, which is good. That feels like it might be broken, or if we... Let's try and get back up. It's quite hard to get back up. Flappy box. Wonder if that QR code works. Oh. Come on, please work, QR code. Can I get closer? I'm trying to get the QR code. Oh. The QR code works. The QR code to the Kickstarter on the box in the demo. That is a fantastic marketing gimmick. Well done. That's so silly. People like silly. The thing is, it's kind of like... Ooh, okay. I can't make this glide, though. I mean, I'm not sure I'd call that a glide. See, I'm not finding, so in response to what Fred's saying in the chat, I'm not actually finding the double jump difficult to understand or execute as playing it, but the gliding is particularly difficult. Just can't seem to, I can't get enough height initially to, can't get enough height in the first place to make the gliding worth it, and then it's like you're kind of gliding for ages and then you just see that you're not going to make it. It's kind of funny in its own right, and I wouldn't even necessarily say it's broken, because I guess this is kind of rage game type territory, but... Okay, cool. Yeah, you don't want the tutorial to be harder than the main game, so let's try it. It's so much easier to win people over with silly, with whatever your brand of silly is, than serious. And I know some people, they really want to do world building, they want to make serious stories and stuff, but the bar is just so much higher to get people on board with something serious than something silly. And it's kind of like, if you think of the most stupid Kickstarter that has ever existed, the potato salad Kickstarter, which is like where someone ended up raising like $70,000 to make a potato salad. If you don't know about it, Google it. I'll add it to the VOD description after the video is uploaded. But yeah, people just gave a dude $60,000 because he asked for $10 to make potato salad, and people like being part of making a silly thing happen. It gives them a sense of community. If your thing is like very serious and it's like, in the universe of Tuk Tuk, there is only one who can save the Dupai people. It just kind of... It's very hard to inspire people with that kind of stuff. Unless you're like a proven... you know, if you're Josh Sawyer, if you're making Pillars of Eternity, you can do that sort of thing. It's really hard to get buy-in for like a serious sci-fi or fantasy type premise. I think people have been burnt by that kind of thing too much. You make something silly, you're going to get people on board a lot easier. Some fantastic puzzle design here as well. Can I actually get in there, or do I need to? Would I need to flap over that way? Maybe I'm going the wrong way. I'm going back down. I don't like it up there. This is fantastic. Okay, I've got it. I'm turning on the electric room. Okay, I do have a to-do. But I'm a box. I don't understand to-do lists. Hello. I think I feel a lot more tolerant of this kind of rage gamey type game when it kind of feels like a real place. There's something a bit more high effort about it. Like I liked Octodad as well. One thing I would say, so this is a little thing about environment design and affordance theory. That door just opened because I flicked that switch. That door had like a handle. I think if you want that door to look like a mechanical electronic door that slides open when a button is pressed, it needs to not have a human-operated door handle. It needs to look like a very Star Trek-y type door. That's just a kind of affordance theory thing of just, you know, if a thing behaves a certain way, make it look like a thing that behaves a certain way. Because I saw that door with the flappy handle and I thought that I needed to be able to turn that with the box. I know that you've given me a to-do to go and turn the electricity on, but just a little kind of visual design thing to do with that kind of thing in an environment. Just make sure that things look like how they work. Slidey mechanical door operated by a button shouldn't have a person handle on it. Super Eater, I made a game called A Game About Cards. Do you guys know how I suggest it to be played? I don't really understand your question. Probably played it with a computer. If it's a computer game. Video game. The kids call them nowadays. 1 minute 50. Yeah, that's just not gonna happen. Get labeled sentient box. The lighting is a little bit harsh. Sometimes we're getting like full black on certain things. I would say, yeah, maybe Bulldogger's point about post-processing. I love these little environmental details. Every box delivered with care. Just like kind of, yeah, silly, subtle irony in the environment. Squeeze in through there. I need to get to the labeling station. Super Eater, there is literally an instruction on your screen saying how to submit games, mate. I'm not going to give you anything more than that right now. It's on your screen. Yeah, you got it. You got it. I'm not too worried about... I don't need the cheaty arrow. So this is an interesting thing about this kind of game. And I think maybe, yeah, this game is doing this quite well. I am lost, and I don't care. And the reason I don't care is because the art looks nice. There's nice little secrets to find. There's little details, funny little jokes, things written on the wall. And it is pleasurable to do the core activity of moving the thing around. And when that is the case, you sort of buy yourself a little frustration budget of like, players not going to care so much about getting lost and messing about. If it's fun to just move around. This game does that really well. Very, very impressed. Is that supposed to be a broken light? We got some flickery there. I'm so good at rolling this box. They don't call me the box roller for nothing. I think maybe I missed something in there. I missed something in the labeling station. Oh, there's stuff in there that I haven't got. Maybe I'm supposed to go down here. No, that's just back the way we came, isn't it? Okay. Okay, I'll turn the debug arrow on. Oh, I see. Okay, so it's over there, but we can't get over there without going through the window past where the magazine collectible thing was. Right, chat, I have a new rule that I'm going to be operating on this channel. I'm not going to verbally answer any questions about game submissions or whether I'll play this or that or the other. If anyone asks and you're in the chat and you feel like you want to type an answer, you totally can, that's fine. But I'm not going to answer them. Because we get dozens sometimes. And the more I answer them, the more inclined I am to answer them rudely. Which is not nice for people, because they're just one person and not the 12 people that asked. Or whatever. But, oh, it's flappy time. But yeah, if you see people ask about that kind of stuff and you want to answer them in the chat and be helpful, then you can. But I'm not going to answer those kind of questions now. I put text on the screen. If you don't know what submit a game means, then I can't help you with that. This is Metal Gear Solid 6. You're right. Snake is in there the whole time. This is one thing I would say. I'm gonna come out of this and look at the other levels. Can we see the other levels? Or is there only that one at the moment? Okay. So I really, really, really like this. I think this has a lot of promise. I think people that like these kind of silly games like I Am Bread, Who's Your Daddy, Octodad, all the other games with dad in the title are going to like this. And it answers that question very quickly in the tutorial. Like I said, imagine your ideal player. What questions or concerns would they have? Okay, why is it a box? What do we get out of being a box? Okay, we can do flappy, flippy stuff with the flaps. Excellent. Answers that very quickly. The thing this doesn't answer is about the kind of variety of environments. And we've started in a very box-heavy environment, which makes it feel like, you know, I think, you know, this is up on Kickstarter. If you've got a Kickstarter, you need a very clear roadmap to say how many levels there will be, what the variation of the levels would be. Because this game with 5 different warehouses is a very different prospect from this game with a bunch of different places and stuff in. We'll have a look at that in a minute. I really like this. I'm going to move on to the Jeff Box Sauce. We'll move on to the next one, but I do really, really like this, and I think that's fantastic, and I wish them the best with that one. Very good standard in terms of like showing people the core idea of a game, all of the creative direction, and giving them enough information to make a choice on whether they want to support that game. Whiskers, Wizards and Wands. Okay, we've got a cat. Hi Vince, I don't. These are teams from Indie Game Academy. You can check the games out on the links in the description. I'm looking at multiple games. I do not have a spreadsheet open with everyone's names in, so I can't do that at the moment. WASD for the movement, QE rotate the camera, F configure wand, J journal. So we've got some wand building type stuff in this, which is appealing, I think. We're shooting spell, we're aiming with the mouse, we're jumping with space. Okay. I'm always a bit worried when I see these control things up front, because it means that I'm probably not going to get any context clues in the game, and I'm expected to memorize this, which is not going to happen. Okay. Space is jump, but space is also interact with things. Do 3D Metroidvanias exist? I mean, we've had 3D Castlevania games. I don't know whether they're considered Metroidvanias. We've had 3D Metroids. It depends. It depends which part of the Metroidvania thing you're interested in, doesn't it? Really. But yeah, I mean, Dark Souls has a lot of the DNA of that, of like the way you open up new areas and it all connects up. We've got a lovely kind of floaty rock thing here. I can cast spells. This is my spell. What is my spell made of? I've got a wand with a small dark gem, a small handle that can hold 3 pieces. Range 1, range 1. Break my wand. One day we will have a stream that is just cat games. Definitely got enough in the back. Probably in the backlog of games we haven't looked at yet, but definitely in the past few months there have been a lot of cat games. Ooh. A medium dark gem. Charges average speed. Okay. I like this one building. We're doing Noita 1 building, but in a slightly different context. The kind of papercraft art thing is reminding me a little bit of Wildermyth, which I really wanted to like and then didn't super get on with. I do like all of the art stuff we're seeing so far, but the way that the camera angle and the gameplay work is yet to be... we need to get to a point where we're actually in peril to see if this all works. I think, you know my take on genre. It's helpful to have discussions about genre, but sometimes you need to just think about what people are getting out of it rather than doing the classification for its own sake. You know? Hit the switch. Is that what that is? That's not a switch, that's a Molyneux. Epic sneeze time. Sorry for that. Thank the void for a day out of the classrooms. Time to curl up with some experimental research chemicals and, Master Juniper, I'm glad to see you are well. Yes, well and quite busy. What leads you to call on me in my own quarters today, Master Mutant? So I need to tune my voices in. I worried that you must be ill since you didn't collect your intern from the academy this morning. Oh, was that this morning? Completely slipped my mind with all the research I have ongoing. You wouldn't mind showing the intern around in my place, would you? This intern is your responsibility. Yes, big responsibility, but I'm just so busy. Your continued academy funding depends upon these required instructional experiences. Unfortunately, I have to do portal maintenance today. I am aware, which is why I left a student to wait for you by the castle ruins just past your portal. Okay. One of the academy students is waiting for me in the ruins for their combat internship. I need to hurry through my portal to meet them. Elemental stuff. Is this selecting my character, or is it just all of the people I know? My book of people, what I know. Oh no, I can, I'm still called Junie, and I'm still talking as Junie. This tutorial is very well structured. That's good. Yeah, I'm a big fan of just this kind of instructions in the environment and then let you get on with it kind of thing. Not that I can actually get the angle so I can see that door as I move into it. Frederick, possibly valid point about the wand effects. We'll see what it's like to use it in situ, but yeah. The main thing you're doing, the main skill you're testing, should be where all the juice is. I see a lovely world. I see quite a coherent art style. You know, there's some stuff here like the typography fits with the art style. The 2D and the 3D feels quite well integrated together. The one visual issue I can see is you've got the same texture on the floor as the walls, which makes everything a bit less legible than it could be. And if you just had like maybe a slightly lighter floor, different color, a different texture on it, just to set it off from the walls, because if you look at this and you sort of, if you squint at it, it all turns into one thing. And the squint test with game art is, if I squint at the thing, could I still play it? Could I still see the key information and where the walls are and where the floors are as part of that key information? So we can add this now. Stone gem. Okay. So I need to turn my headphones down. The music is getting slightly grating now. It now makes sense that dark is a element. I didn't realize that at first because calling it a small dark gem just sounds like a physical description. But then you get a stone gem. It's like, okay, this is an element. Okay, doesn't really matter too much. It's not going to confuse people for very long. Yeah, it's a very slow projectile. There isn't a... When it hits, there's no sound effect. There isn't really much of a sense of impact or anything. Time for some wand works. I can shoot the activation pedestal from the other side of the ooze with the spell. Click either mouse button to fire spells. Okay, I will. I'm not sure I like this kind of radial aiming with this camera angle. Because you sort of end up in a slightly weird position where it's like, am I looking at where my mouse is or am I looking at where this is? And yeah, I don't know. Like if I shoot there, the camera only moves at 45-degree angles as well. There's a lot of choices that just feel like they've been done for style rather than usability. Like the camera moves at 45-degree angles, and then all of these hallways are angled in such a way that the camera always positions you with the... Like, I would want to... In this situation, I want to... You see this camera angle and this camera angle? In this situation where I'm shooting something up there, I kind of want to be able to put the camera at the 45-degree intersection between those things. And I don't think the... Like, the way that you allow the players to move the camera, I guess it kind of becomes part of the puzzle here of, like, moving the camera around and working out where you can best see what you're doing, but it's a bit of a hard sell. Right, I'm trying to work out the dash, because it doesn't always go in the direction I'd expect. This one is a mixed bag. This one is less kind of... cut and dry. The first game we played felt like a bit of a mess. It felt like it had been made in the wrong order. It felt like the wrong things had been prioritized. The gameplay elements were buggy and underdeveloped in terms of like the interface design and the way they looked and felt. The second game, very, very clear in what it's doing, very well executed. I think that kind of felt like a solid promise to the audience of like, if you want more of this, we can do more of this. This is all over the place again, but some of it is very positive. Like all of the visual stuff is very good. Cameras and controls are hard. There is a reason why in AAA studios, cameras, controls, and characters are 3 Cs. That is one person's whole job in a big AAA studio. Some of these decisions, like the 45-degree camera, I'm not sure it works for me. The radial aiming while at this angle feels weird. Sorry, my cold is really starting to kick. Really starting to kick my ass now. Okay, I think I've changed to a projectile with a shorter range. No, they're all the same range. Okay. When I say built in the wrong order, I mean that the core gameplay of your game should all make sense before you add any story content. I don't think you need story content or polished world art until the gameplay feels good. And some people would describe that as over-polish. Oh, like, you don't need projectile impact effects or nice-looking cards until all of the rest of the game is in place. No, you do, because that's the core thing you're doing. I'm not like a, John Cormack story doesn't matter type person, but I think if you're making a game that is predominantly about characters talking, then just do that, make a visual novel. And if you're making an action game or a card game or a strategy game, make a very polished vertical slice of just the gameplay before you add any dialogue or any tutorial or anything like that. Yeah, this is dark coded, so maybe you're right that I'm using the wrong element. But the problem is that the reticule looks like it doesn't reach. There we go. It did work. So part of the problem here is this reticule only goes there, and it looks like it's in front of the thing I'm aiming at. So I immediately get the impression that if I shoot there, that's not actually going to hit the thing, but it did. So you got to think about every stage of that interaction. What does the reticule suggest about where my shot is going to go? And then when my shot goes over there, if it hits that thing, what I would go for with this interaction is taking that purple color and like glowing the whole thing with the color that it was just hit with, so you at least get a sense of the impact. There's a very low, not much feeling of impact in this. Moving the camera to see the level from different angles feels like it's an intentional part of the gameplay. I'm not sure I like it, but it at least feels like a decision that was made with some thought. I certainly thought I was clever hiding these pedestals behind wall backs when I didn't know I'd be rushing to save a student. I think I left a wand attachment I need in the chest down there. Okay. Collect the wand segment from the chest. Open the wand menu with F to switch up pieces of the equipped wand. Yeah, I would like it if the walls halved themselves when they are occluding, rather than when see-through. The problem with going see-through is they look like they're not there. Right, so the solution in most cases is to go down to like a lower bit of wall and have like a jagged edge or something. Okay, I open this. I get a wand segment. I really love the wand building. This interface is beautiful. Really, really like that. Very intuitive. Projectile goes through walls. Excellent. Okay. And I get that this isn't meant to be like a violent game, so maybe there's a bit of hesitancy to like make the spells juicy when they hit things. Like, oh, we don't want to do a little bit of screen shake and a rumbly sound and stuff. But even if you're making a cartoony game that isn't about fighting, people still want that stuff. You know, it's just game show psychology type things. These plates need to be weighted down at the same time. Hopefully my create item one piece. Again, this is doing a good job of like answering the questions that a player would have about, can this team do this thing? If I were to give this team, and you know, we're talking about Kickstarter here. If I was to give this team creates an object based on the gem, we want a stone now. If I was to give this team money on Kickstarter, which is what we've got here, would they be capable of making loads more of this with interesting variation? And everything I see with this game, yeah, I feel confident that this team can do puzzles. And that we've had a first sort of 10 minutes of the game that is very strongly focused on showing that, and that's good. Yeah, the streams are always on as a VOD afterwards. It's just an automatic thing that YouTube does. Yeah, as ideas, I tend to agree about the camera angle. I understand, like, thinking, okay, my game looks better from this angle, but if you were to fix it, then you could just, as you said, design the level around it. The other thing, if you fix the camera angle, you don't have to worry so much about the billboarding feeling weird when you move around it. Yeah, I think a single fixed angle makes more sense. I mean, if there's a decision you can make that is going to make the thing look better and make it easier to make at the same time, then I'd generally go for that. If I go up here... I mean, it is fixed with the ability to rotate. I find it really frustrating that all of the corridors are not... You're always occluded when going down a corridor. This kind of... The actual kind of way that the shading stuff is done for the occlusion looks really nice. But it feels like trying to tech around a problem caused by design choices. How does Don't Starve do it? Does Don't Starve have rotation? Because that's a good example of this kind of, you know, 3D world with billboarded cameras from this camera angle. Because I tend to find being able to move the camera around in a top-down view, unless there's like a kind of true north that you return to, I get really lost. The thing with like real-time strategy games and stuff, there's a mini-map and there's a sense that this is always north. And you might be able to turn the camera around a little bit, but I think if you give people too much freedom, they'll just won't be able to understand the space. Because they're not inhabiting it as a character, right? They're inhabiting it as a floating camera, which is different. We've got 2 wands now. But this wand is small, so it can only have 2 judges, and this one can have 3. This is such a good way of, like, remediating the Noita wand building into something interesting and new, and which is going to introduce it to a totally different audience that wouldn't have played that. How do I switch wands? Swap wands tab. I would put wand swap on the middle mouse wheel as well. I know not everyone has one, but it feels like the obvious place for it. For an extra shortcut for that. Okay, we're doing combat training now. Always challenging to do kind of combat with cutesy stuff. You have to make it feel really Looney Tunes. These ghosts are attuned to stone magic, so let's make sure we're using water. Okay. That's not super intuitive. Yeah, you're right. No, yeah, Don't Starve doesn't have any 3D walls. Having ghosts as our stone enemy that you defeat with water is just not super intuitive. That feels a little bit... I don't know. We've worked with what we had. I think what would make this feel more coherent would be if these walls, instead of blocks, were like a thin cardboard plane that went around, so that it felt more in line with the paper craft. But I guess you can't do that because these are blocks. It's difficult. Combat feels okay. We need a stone wand for that, don't we? And then a dark wand. I need to swap my gems. Yeah. Definitely feels like it's a difficult like knot of problems because you're designing the game and then you're, you know, I did a level design video on this. It's like when you do your level design, you can't just go out there and someone says this is how you make levels and you do it. It's like you have to create the level design rules for the game that you've made. And yeah, this has a lot of considerations. It's like the way that the camera moves, the angles, what you can see from different places. Is that the way we came through, or is this a new place? This is a new place. The billboarding of the characters introduces certain considerations as well. But we're starting to get into like weird territory because the you do upgrade the wands with loads of projectiles, which starts to make me think that we're going into like Binding of Isaac, more shooting focused territory, which doesn't feel super aligned with the puzzliness and the difficult cameras as well. It feels like it's pulling in lots of different directions, and they're not necessarily directions that are bad or that don't go together. I need to put the item spawning thing on there. To spawn a rock on there. It's not spawning where it looks like it's going to. I don't want it. Oh, okay, I've got the wrong loadout. Yeah, that's what I want. Yeah, the tiles are creating quite a lot of noise on the ground. Is that good? Am I supposed to break that open to get something out of it? Oh, there's a lever there. Yeah, a couple of people in the chat saying that the tiling feels a bit unnecessary. It does add a lot of it adds a lot of contrast and noise to something that doesn't really need it. And like you say, you don't really need to count tiles. Who are these guys? Ah! Don't kill me. No, you should stay in the water, surely. I'll kill you with rocks. Stop it. Ah. These enemy designs are very charming. Maybe a bit too friendly looking when they're in their idle. It's really starting to look like a Net Eurosy game in the background. Big Net Eurosy vibes. What is that? Why can I make that cone shell stand up? Why do I want to do that? I mean, yeah, there's some chat about art approaches and the tiling and everything. I mean, even hearing that they experimented with something and then went back on it is quite positive to hear, because sometimes people just plow ahead and the game you end up seeing is just like every single thing they did, and they never roll anything back and they never go, no, that's not right, let's do something else, and it just ends up being a mess. So even just hearing that the dev team have tried stuff and that it's not what ended up in the game is, I think, in its own right, quite a positive thing. Trying to do puzzles and get murdered at the same time is not a vibe. Yeah, the aiming doesn't feel particularly good to me. I think I'm trying to use the wrong thing on them as well. Right, let's make... Let's make the ultimate murder machine. I don't care about range, I just want lots of pow-pow. Just not very clear when the projectiles connect. And when I started playing that, I initially thought that was because it wasn't a very combat-focused game, but now we've got this whole level with stuff trying to kill you. The fact that they flip around and stuff is cool, but yeah, sound effect, some sort of indicator at the moment of the hit. We've got a red flash. I would flash it the color of the element you just hit them with, so it's a much more clearer indication that it's related, but yeah. We tried to wake the devs up, but they were like, no, we want to sleep. Yeah, unfortunately that's just the time when the stream is. Circles, projectile circle. And again, this is, thinking about what is the demo proving. This is showing us variety. This is showing us that we're going to do some interesting builds, even if we're not going to use all this stuff now. We're going to get some interesting toys to play around with. Yeah, exactly. FX. I think any FX that relate to your core mechanics aren't polish. Your prototype should have the FX for your core mechanics in, you know? So that breaks that, and then if I press it again, it goes back together. Okay, so there are other switches for the other doors on there. I find this one very charming, and I think there are a lot of stronger elements of it, but it feels very like... It's hard for me to understand what type of fun this is supposed to be giving me. It feels like a kind of grab bag of interesting ideas. And I sort of... I feel very... I feel like this game is a kindred spirit, because a lot of what I try to make ends up being similar to this, of like... This feels like a very... a mix of lots of weird things at once. And a lot of the things are like individually very charming. But I'm not sure if the way that they're put together is super fun yet, and I think some of that is because I'm not sure what type of fun it's supposed to be giving me. The place isn't like... The location isn't... The location is too abstract to feel like an exciting place to explore. So then it's like, okay, this is like a challenge-based game of can you do the level, rather than exploring the place. And then... the can you do the level part is like, I'm trying to do puzzles, but then stuff occasionally attacks me and then makes me forget what I'm doing. The combat feels like busy work between puzzles a little bit, because it's not kind of juicy enough in its own right for it to feel like the real focus of the game. But obviously is meant to be part of the focus of the game because we're doing the one building. I think this one can be really good, but it needs to sort of work out what type of fun it's doing and just hone in on that a bit more, maybe. These look like things I should be able to break, but I'm not sure how to do it, and It is always the challenge with doing sort of discovery-based design, is you have to work out what the game is leaning towards as you do it. It's more like a kind of choose your own adventure situation of like, if you want, you've got the one building mechanic, right? The theme of it being a wizard and the one building mechanic are very tied together. So if we were to think about, like, what is the most fixed part of this game that we can't change? Okay, it's cats that are wizards that make wands. Why do they make wands? Well, some of the things the wands can do are to solve puzzles, and some of the things the wands could do are to solve combat. But it feels like a majority of the wand uses are combat related, and that doesn't mean we can't do both. But it does feel more like a puzzle game that is being interrupted by combat at the moment. And I think in order to make the combat feel better, you would need to consider the way that VFX are used, the aiming. As someone said, if it's supposed to feel like a lightweight, casual combat thing, put some auto-aim in there. So DS, I think that's a good suggestion, yeah. Think about the yeah, I think that's a very good idea. So think about, it's kind of like scheduling of content, right? And your encounter design of, like, instead of having a puzzle where you go around the whole level trying to do a thing and then there are monsters stopping you, have the fighting condensed as an encounter. You do a puzzle, then there's an encounter. I think some of this is level design rather than the core mechanics, you're right. But the kind of whole one design system and this is kind of selling you the promise of getting gradually more powerful, which means you do need the combat to be somewhat robust, and it feels like it's almost there, but just sort of being asked to switch modes mentally between remembering what I'm doing in the level to go around and solve these puzzles, and then switching in and out of combat just feels a little bit confusing. I know I'm streaming, so I'm gonna have like -50 concentration on sort of remembering what I'm doing in the game, which is always a problem with watching streamers play games because they're not playing like a normal person. But yeah, definitely having trouble remembering the layout of the level. I think the 45-degree angle switches don't help with that. They make it very hard to remember the level geometry. I think having a fixed camera angle lets you remember where things are very easily because it's always north is always north. And having a you know, totally over the shoulder or first person helps you remember the level because you're embodied in the level walking around as a character. But having this kind of, you can rotate the camera around, it just means you don't really have many reference points to remember where anything is based on. Hi Linessa. These streams usually go on for about 2 hours when I'm doing multiple games. When I do my dev streams, I sometimes go on a little bit longer because that's less kind of talking and switching between things. But yeah, we'll be on for maybe half an hour more. I might have to stop early because my cold is kicking my ass today. But we'll look at the Kickstarter pages for these in a minute and have a think about marketing and copywriting and stuff like that as well, because they have Kickstarters that are up. They're doing okay. They've got some backers. All of them have got some backers, which is great. I did have a quick look before the stream. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I would be, I think it's very brave to get people to do a Kickstarter at the end of a course, because you're, you know, by running a Kickstarter, you're not just committing to make a thing with some people, you're also committing to backers to work with those people for a certain amount of time, and if you haven't worked with them for very long, then that's a scary kind of commitment. I know what I need to do here. Oh no, I don't. I thought maybe I needed to shoot that through the door with a power-up, but... yeah, I just can't find the last key, the last thing I'm supposed to activate. Yeah, I think doing a Kickstarter in the first place is a lot of commitment, and doing a Kickstarter with a team that you haven't worked with for very long is a little bit scary. I mean, I think you'll still get some good results out of it. But yeah, I used Kickstarters for teaching before, but it was really just to introduce people to the idea of a pitch and to get them thinking about, like, how much does it actually cost to make a game. Like, if you were going to work together with 3 people and pay yourself minimum wage and work for a year on something, how much does that cost? And then to, like, start thinking about that. But yeah, actually going live with it is not something we did because, you know, to be totally honest, you know, I mean, in the UK, like, degree level courses in the UK in games, the percentage of people that go on to a job in the games industry after doing a games degree, it may be slightly higher for, like, computer science related to games, but things like design and general development degrees, it's 5 to 10%. And the thing is, you have to teach every part of it. You have to teach how things work in a big studio, and also the entrepreneurial, how you would do it yourself, right? The thing that's cool about something like Indie Game Academy is you have a much more specific remit of, like, no, we're going to be entrepreneurial, we're going to make our own thing. This isn't necessarily about getting a job at a bigger studio, although that is how most people do get jobs at bigger studios, is a portfolio of their own. Whether they think of them as indie projects or hobby projects, it's a portfolio of stuff they've made in their own time, you know? And, but yeah, but university, you kind of have to teach everything from every angle, and it's, I don't know how much it works. It's Rat's Tail. I'm just going to jump out of the level now. That's a good falling to our demise sound. That's a very Nintendo 64, GameCube falling to our death sound. Right, let's jump out of this and have a look at some Kickstarter stuff and marketing stuff. I'm not a Kickstarter expert, but we can look at some of this stuff in terms of general marketing practice as well. So the first game we looked at was Daughter of the Rift. Second one was The Box is Alive. Third one was Whiskers, Wizards and Wands. I feel like the second two games we looked at are in a state where I don't feel bad about them being kickstarted. I think Wizards, Whiskers and Wands needs to work out a little bit more where the kind of puzzly and combat stuff meet. Like someone in the chat said a minute ago, maybe the combat needs to be more puzzly and the puzzles need to be more combat-y. And I think Noita is a very good example of that, right? Because in Noita, it's like you're seeing stuff in the environment and you're reacting to it like you're doing a puzzle game, but you're doing it in this very like reactive way of like, oh, quickly, I need to throw a bomb down there. Oh, quickly, I can drop that thing down on top of that thing. Those elements aren't very kind of coherently joined together in this. But I saw enough sort of thought and polish in this game that I think this team can kind of pull off what they're trying to do if they keep at it and they keep experimenting with that stuff. It does still have some problems with the cameras and the controls maybe not feeling like they're in their final form yet. The Box is Alive. This just, it does what it says, you know. It's got a very clear idea of what it's trying to do for you. It's trying to give you this kind of slightly ragey, physical, I am bread type game experience. It has a very consistent tone of being this slightly silly, pseudo-realistic environment with something absurd happening in it. And yeah, this just feels like whoever was working on this, everyone was pushing in the same direction. And yeah, everyone got funded. They're very small pledges, but overfunded. I don't know if you've ever heard of Conway's Law, but Conway's Law is the idea that with software, and I don't like to think of games as software because they're not. They are games made on computers and played on computers. But Conway's Law comes from software development. It's the idea that the shape and characteristics of a product end up being sort of resembling the team that made them, right? So if you have a big, slow team, it's going to be a particular type of game. The reason this makes me think of Conway's Law is the Box is Alive just feels like everyone who was on the team was trying to make exactly the same thing, and they knew exactly what the thing was, and they were all pushing in the same direction. Whiskers, Wizards and Wands still feels like the result of a set of individuals with different skills kind of trying to cobble together and make something interesting and use all their skills to make something unique and interesting, and it feels like there are parts of it that just aren't aligned yet. I really like it. I like all of the parts of it. I'm just not sure that they're all arranged in a way that is the best version of the game yet. You know? I feel like everything that's in this could be rearranged a few times and you would end up with something fantastic. And I can't really tell you what the best arrangement is, but the combat doesn't feel juicy enough to be the focus. The combat takes focus away from the puzzles. The puzzles feel slightly annoying because of like rotating the camera around in 45 degrees and stuff. So I would take a big list and go like, right, what is really strong right now? The one building is really strong. The character, all of the billboarded art assets feel really good. The overall visual look of the game is really strong. The camera doesn't feel strong. The impact of combat doesn't feel strong. Maybe try and treat those things to some sort of blue sky thinking of like, what if we did this completely differently? Because I really, really like nearly every part of this, and there are just a few decisions that feel like they're holding it back. And again, it's because it's trying to do something more different. It's trying to do like a weird mix of things. It's trying to do something a bit more different, and that makes it's just harder to get that right because there's not as much stuff you can copy, right? This is very, very similar to another game, and the most unique thing is the kind of flappy box thing, which immediately, again, like I said, answers the question of why are we playing as a box, you know? Oh, that's cool. So the Kickstarter amounts, the reason they're so small is because they've worked out specific budgets that they want to specific extra things they want to pay for. And Daughter of the Rift. Yeah, just not enough care into the main bit of the game that you're interacting with, which is the cards. Really, really like this kind of Teen Titans almost art style. It just feels like the actual card play thing is really undercooked. And the game doesn't need loads of story until you've got that bit right, you know? I mean, all games are going to be copies of other games in certain parts. But yeah, I think that is where you start off, because it's very hard to get people to focus on how games generally do stuff, you know? Like when you're designing something like this, people design from memory. And I'm talking about like the moment-to-moment game feel, really. But they will put the cards on the screen and they'll go, oh, yeah, this, that, and the other. And they won't go and sit down with Slay the Spire and go, okay, why does this look the way it does? Why does it move the way it does? And like really take it apart. Whereas if you're like directly copying the thing, then it's like doing a master's copy when you're doing fine art, where you directly copy a Van Gogh or something. And the point is, it's supposed to help you think about why they did the things. It's difficult because you do want to foster some level of creativity, but you also don't want to end up with people that think that making something totally new is the absolute goal, because I don't think it is. Like, it's cool art, looks like some interesting world building. It's got kind of Saturday morning kids TV type vibe, but I also don't know anyone who would want to play this in terms of the combination of the art and the world building and the cards, who wouldn't just play Griftlands instead, you know? And that's the other thing. It's like, the game you're trying to make, is there just a kind of much better version of it? And if that's the case, then you need to think about that. Let's have a look. A narrative deck building RPG where you will battle, strategize, and immerse yourself in an interstellar story that will tug at your heartstrings. Step into a rich world where novel card mechanics fuse with a deep story as players. See, I don't think these appeal to the same sort of person. And actually, this is why I didn't play Griftlands. I played Griftlands for about 3 hours. It's probably Clay's most narrative-heavy game that they've made. And it felt like it went too far. And I think the way that you fuse a card game with a story, if you want to do it really well, if you look at what they do in Hearthstone, where you have these single-player dungeons, and as you're playing, like, the other character taunts you, and that creates a little bit of a story. Like, you're basically playing a match against someone, and the trash talk during the match becomes the story. I think that's a very interesting way to put card games and story together, because you're sort of remediating the chat you would have with someone across the table as you play a card game. So it feels like the kind of social story element isn't like this separate thing that is stopping you playing another round of cards. The problem with fusing these is that you create this kind of weird UX thing where the players that really want to play the card game just skip through the story, like, get on with it, and the players that really want the story are just having the story interrupted by the card mechanics. And I kind of like both these things. I haven't played a game where I really liked them being put together yet. And I think that's like a general thing to think about when you put two things together in a game is, do these create a conflict And if they do create a conflict, what are we doing about that? Because, like, I personally don't want to play a match of a card game and then read a couple of pages of dialogue and then play another match of a card game. If the card game is good, I just want to keep playing the card game. It just feels like the two things that are trying to be mixed don't appeal to the same sort of mind or mood. I don't know. I think saying how do they pivot is the wrong question, because some games you just stop. And I know that's not what the answer anyone wants to hear. I think all of the art assets here are great. I don't think the card game I saw shows enough like polish in the implementation, or just an understanding of what makes these games work. And I think I'm not a big fan of story-heavy games that use turn-based combat in between telling a story anyway. Like, I'm not a big fan of JRPGs. I think they have their own little audience. I'm almost, I would think, like, look at these characters, and like, they are the art is the strongest thing in this game currently. When I was playing it, I was not invested enough to really read the dialogue enough to want to get into the story, which is kind of the problem with this kind of mashup. Like, people that want to play a visual novel maybe will play some mini games, but people who want to play a card game don't want to read a visual novel at the same time. Le Cake, I mean, that's the problem with the idea of RPGs in general, right? Is that RPG is such a broad category that it's become meaningless. So yeah, like Willem, I would take what I'm saying with a pinch of salt, but yeah. The thing is, I think if you are going to put two things together that are really in conflict, then they need to be both of a very high quality. I think if I'm mainly there to play a game, like I've worked on games before where it was like you play a level and there is a dialogue at the start and the end of every level, and this is like a classic format, right? This is like I don't know, like Advance Wars has this. The characters pop up and they give you a bit of a context for the fight that you're about to have. I think if you're an indie and you're going for that format where there's a game and there are individual encounters or matches and there's a bit of story each side, then make the story like 3 or 4 lines each time. Set some real hard limits around how much story there is and make the game really good. And then what I saw here in terms of where the quality was loaded, the quality is loaded into the art and the time writing. The combat gameplay just didn't feel like it. It felt like an undercooked thing to slap all of that art and story on top of it. Inscription is another good reference point, and again, that is the story is happening in the card stuff, right? Like the cards talking to you and stuff like that. Definitely a good recommendation. And this is a team where you've got a writer, right? So again, thinking about, you've got a set of people, they're going to make a game. You want to make use of all their strengths. I think making sure the writing is commingled into the combat, whatever the combat is, makes a lot of sense. Let me just have a look at the way that this is structured as well. Let's take a look. I think in terms of the way this is written, this is really strong. Nice and short, tells us exactly what we're going for. But yeah, then you watch a universe plagued by you watch the video. And again, we don't get gameplay quick enough, and then when we do, it's like the cards the cards are the core game mechanic thing, and they're just so placeholder looking, you know? And that's a shame, because I really like everything else about the creative direction of this. So Tim Kaine and Chris Zukowski keep popping up and want to get in on the fight. I worked on a game that was a mobile game. What was it called? I worked on this for a little while. It was Mediatonic, and then I was in like an outsourcing team when the game was being sunset. And this was like their attempt at making free-to-play FTL, basically. And it had this kind of JRPG-style combat where you just clicked on a character, they had 3 moves, you clicked on another one, like marionette combat. Kind of a similar thing that they're going for in terms of the overall vibe here, but yeah, just... The demo really needs to just answer that question of how does this all work together straight away. And I would have loved to have gone straight into a piece of combat with the characters talking during the combat so that we can see, okay, this is a narrative-driven card game, but we're not doing that by front-loading loads of dialogue. We're going to go straight into a combat, maybe after a couple of lines of dialogue. Characters are going to banter during the combat, and we're going to quickly see how the different characters sort of play out through their cards, because I didn't see any of that either. You could almost see, so unlock unique abilities. Build your team. Character-specific cards and abilities with the experience you have from each battle. Okay. Unleash powerful synergies. Yeah, we just didn't really see... I didn't see that being a thing in the demo that we played. Build synergistic decks, specialize your heroes, discover powerful combinations that fit your strategy. Lots of lore. Yeah, it kind of feels like the game design of the card bit. These are all really top level things. They don't really tell you what you're doing moment to moment, and a lot of them really just apply to everything in the genre. And I think that should be a red flag when you're doing the thing is, when you're writing a pitch like this, the way you describe things is very similar to the top level description you would do in a design document anyway. So it doesn't really matter whether we're thinking about this in terms of like selling the idea or just having the idea in order to make the game in the first place. This is just the description of every card battling game. Yeah, you want to build synergistic decks. That's just a genre expectation. That is not really telling us how that is implemented in this game. Specializing your heroes, that is just a genre expectation. That is just what people expect when they look at this screenshot. I look at this screenshot, I see, I've got 2 different characters and I've got cards. That probably means they have different cards, right? This is not telling us anything about that. Discover powerful combinations that fit your strategy. Again, it's a card battler. I expect that to be. So it kind of feels a bit like... It feels a bit like you're telling me, we're going to make you this cake, and the cake's going to have eggs, it's going to have sugar, it's going to have flour, It's gonna be decorated, and it's like, yeah, I know that's the components of a cake. So I think part of the problem with trying to sell this idea and trying to implement it is that you don't really have a narrower enough idea of how these things play out specifically in your game. And I think if we go to a historical Kickstarter, is the Darkest Dungeon Kickstarter still available? Because that's a close reference point. Eggs and sugar and flour are good. But it's not specific enough, is it? That's the problem. I want to see... Right, let's look at the original... I don't know how many times this has been updated. Overfunded about 5 times. Wonderful. It's a cow farm. Focus your efforts on the thing the player is doing, I think, is the main lesson we can get from Daughter of the Rift. Focus your effort on what the player is doing. Make sure that makes sense. Make sure that feels good. Make sure that everything else around in the game is revolving around that. Because if you don't, you're going to pour all of this time into other stuff, and then people aren't going to engage with it. We present a fresh take on the dungeon crawler that elevates the importance of sound tactics and a character's mental state over their gear. Okay, so that's the top level description. Like we saw in Daughter of the Rift, where it said there's strategy and you're customizing characters and all of that stuff. That's a top level description. But then we get into like what's actually happening. Okay, and innovative strategic turn-based combat system. That's not enough on its own. You can't just say it's an innovative strategic turn-based combat system. What is innovative about it? Okay, here we've got it. The affliction system. This is basically telling you that your characters will get messed up in some way as the game goes along. Okay, art style, fine, whatever. Innovative turn-based combat. Tell us more. Meaningful permadeath, procedural dungeons, incredible replay. Okay, some of this is a bit more specific. Town metagame, tend to your hero's wounds, both corporeal and cerebral. It's not just saying you have to look after your heroes. It's giving us a little bit of a sense of how that happens. It's getting more specific. I think sometimes when you can't describe your game design in a specific way, it's because you haven't done it. You know? Someone says, we have character customization, and then someone says, cool, tell me more. And then you go, okay, you don't really have an idea for what that character customization is. So that's some of the problem there, I think. The where, what, and how. Yeah, that's a really good way of thinking about it, Night Raven. Where, what, who, how, when, why. The specifics of the thing you're describing. Tell people the top level thing. You're making a little promise then. You're going to say, this has deep strategic combat. That's a little promise. Next paragraph, cash the promise by answering those W and WH questions and H questions. How is a H question, isn't it? Where, when, who. But if you just make the promise and you don't cash it by giving those more specific things, it makes you look like you're making it up as you go along. The box is alive. Ever wonder what happens when a delivery box gets tired of waiting? In The Box is Alive, you are that box, a sentient cardboard rebel stranded in a labyrinth of conveyor belts, crushers, and corporate absurdity. This is good. This is conveying the tone of the game well. Your mission, deliver yourself in a world with no overnight shipping. One chaotic flip at a time. With every bounce and glide, you'll uncover the truth behind Boreal's boxes with care, promise, and decide whether freedom is worth the dents. Boreal being a play on Amazon, because a boreal is a type of forest, or a being of forests. Wrapped in whimsical values and backed up by a reactive soundtrack, The Box is Alive blends slapstick humour with a light-hearted critique of automation and over-packaging culture. It's equally parts goofy and thoughtful, inviting you to laugh, fail, and think outside the box. Yeah, again, This game, just everything is pushing in the same direction. Sorry. I thought I'd muted my mic that time and I muted the wrong thing. Another thing about making, we're here on Game Dev YouTube, and 80% of the content on Game Dev YouTube is people going, make small games, or somehow related to that. People say make small games, but I'm not gonna. And I would encourage people to think less about scope. No. Stop thinking of your scope of your game as the size of the game, because that's what people do. When people start talking about scope, they watch a bit of game dev stuff, they read one book about design or production, and they go, oh, it's really important to think about scope. And it is. But people also just go scope as like a kind of professional pantomime thing because they know it's something that they're supposed to care about. Scope isn't about size, it's about focus, right? So think of, I've used this metaphor before, sorry if you've heard me go on about this before. Think of an actual telescope, right? You are going to make a game about pirates, and you sail over to Pirate Island, and you've got your little pirate telescope, and you look over at Pirate Island, and on Pirate Island are all of the things that could be in your game about pirates. You're there to do your research. You're a very dedicated game developer who likes to do deep research, so you've gone to Pirate Island, and you're going to scope it out with your telescope. And the thing about a telescope is if you zoom in on something in a lot of detail, you're no longer looking at other things, right? So if you zoom in and you look at the beach and you see someone digging out treasure, right? And Cake, maybe this will help you, right? If you say you can't think of a game this small, don't think of it as small. Think of it as focus, right? So you say, I'm going to make a game about pirates. Now, you go to Pirate Island, and if you look at Pirate Island through your telescope, and your telescope is very zoomed out, you can see all of Pirate Island. And you can probably see certain things happening, like you can see ships coming and going, and you might see some like cannons going off at certain points. And then you zoom all the way in, and you can see one specific thing happening, like a pirate digging up some treasure, or some pirates having a sword fight, or some pirates drinking some rum. That's what scope is. Scope isn't how big or small something is, it's how focused it is, right? So when you scope in on something, you are cutting other things out so that you can show one thing in more detail. And when you scope out, you are showing more things, but you're not showing as many in detail. And the reason why people tell you to make smaller games and to have a smaller scope isn't just so you have less to do, it's so that the thing that you make can be more focused. And because the goal of this game, the goal of The Box is Alive, is so laser focused on being just a funny physics-based platformer. Everything is pointing in the same direction. And part of the reason why everything is pointing in the same direction is there are just less things. So the game mechanics, the theme, the location, everything, like the tone of the music, it's easier to get it aligned and to make it feel coherent and to make it feel, quite frankly, good, because there's just less to focus on, right? I mean, it's not a new way to put scope. It's just an accurate description of what scope is actually supposed to mean in terms of project management. It's just people misinterpret these terms and they just think it means big or small. It doesn't mean big or small. It means level of focus, right? That's why it is a visual, a scope. You look at things with it. That's why we use that metaphor. It's just people really like to focus in on the big or small things. And then when people say make something small, they take offense to it. They're like, you don't believe in me. You don't believe that I can make my dream game. And it's not about whether I can believe in you. It's just the fact that I know that if you make something more focused, it will be better, right? And it will be more likely that it's something good. And like the Daughter of the Rift, the problem it's suffering from is trying to be two things at once, and trying to be a visual novel and also a deep strategic card game is very difficult. Like, Darkest Dungeon is a deep strategic game, and its narrative elements are very backgroundy, and like you have barks and stuff like that, but it doesn't have like full pages of dialogue. And if it did, it would probably be a worse game because it would be less focused. And this isn't to say you shouldn't mix things together, but when you do, think about the overlaps and focus in on them, right? The game I'm making at the moment is a genre mashup. I'm making a game that mashes up platforming and like room drafting, and that's a very weird set of things to mash up, but every decision I make is about how do I bring these things together more. I don't just make them as separate things, right? So again, taking all the parts of the game, trying to point them in the same direction so the user experience is really focused on delivering a particular thing, rather than we go over here and we do a puzzle, and now we go over here and we do fighting, now we go over here and we do some talking. You can do that, but the more you segment things out and don't point them in the same direction, sort of like the higher quality they need to be to stand on their own. And that's very, very hard to do if you're in a small team and with a small budget. So Whiskers, Wizards and Wands, really like... yeah, I'm not going to spend ages going through the Boxes Alive physics platformer Kickstarter because, I mean... Is everything done right? The introduction is short, snappy, gives us everything, tells us a little bit about the satirical content of the game without beating us over the head with it. Lots of lovely gifs of gameplay presented in different ways. You know, this is stuff you would see on Blue Sky or the Nazi equivalent and go, yeah, I want to play that. And again, marketing materials, not about appealing to everyone. It's just about making a thing that has the best possible chance of appealing to the person that would like that thing and would really like it. And all of this is very, very clear. The only issue I see with this game at this stage is we're doing the warehouse so much, and do we want a bit more variation in like content and stuff? I don't know. That feels like a thing that would have been very good to set up as a stretch goal for the project and say, look, if this gets overfunded by 10 grand, we're going to make a magical forest level or something ridiculous like that. Wizards, Whiskers and Wands, again, really lovely game where so with Daughter of the Void, we've got a game with one very strong element, and that's, well, the art and the story, all of that kind of side of things, the cartoon part of the game, very strong. Card game feels quite weak, feels a bit undercooked, feels like it, you know, it's not doing the basic UX thing for like a basic card battler to feel good, right? So that was a game where there's a strong bit and there's a weak bit. This is a game where all of the elements are kind of strong. It's just maybe they're not fitting together in a way that makes sense yet. Good trailer, straight into the gameplay. And the shots in those first few seconds of gameplay all show us different things as well. One of the problems that a lot of games have with presenting themselves via video is it's like a character in the middle of the screen and the background changes. We've got like different things happening.
A broken land, scattered magic. Fuzzy paws.
Great, right? This is charming as well. This makes you root for the team. Like, when you see something like that, like the characters being held up, it shows you the artifice of the thing. It shows you that it's being made by people, and that makes people more likely to back you. It's kind of that, the whole thing with crowdfunding, it's not just getting money from people that want your game. There is partly that, but it's also trying to get people on board with the moment of making the thing happen, which, like I say, is why it's easier to get people on board with something silly like a box physics game or a potato salad than with something deathly serious. We've got that moment of like showing the artifice of like the things waving around on sticks, which is very funny, adds the human element to this, of this is people asking other people for money. And also we're kind of parodying the worst type of Kickstarter video with this kind of a broken land, because I saw that for a moment, split second, when I first saw this, I thought, oh my god, what are they doing? Why are they doing this terrible sort of like, I think I'm J.R.R. Tolkien, I think I'm Game of Thrones intro that every fantasy game on Kickstarter does. Why are they doing it? And they do it. They do the first two parts and then they break it with the fairy paws. They're doing a parody, and they do it in just enough time for it to kind of turn around in our head and hit right, which is very good.
A broken land. Scattered magic. Fuzzy paws. Combine dozens of wand effects to build unique spells. Use your wands to solve puzzles, help animal friends, and fight off enraged creatures. Change your appearance to fit your mood. Use your creativity to restore the arcane balance of the cosmos. Only your magical paws can save this hand-drawn paper world from being ripped apart forever in Whiskers, Wizards, and Wands.
Yeah, that's very cute. I really like this idea as well, Willem, of doing these small Kickstarters where it's just for some extra stuff that you need. It's good. I was a little bit worried when I saw they were Kickstarters at first, but understanding now that it's not really full dev, it's just like, we want some more music or something. It's good. A battle between elemental deities has left the world shattered and scrambled. The primordial forces of water, stone, darkness, lightning, and plants are wreaking chaos upon the land and its inhabitants. Sweet and power source, okay. Really like the incorporation of the wands into the way this page is laid out. Yeah, it's a good way of using Kickstarter, I think. I think Kickstarter is really not Kickstarter specifically, but the crowdfunding methodology has developed a bad taste for lots of people. So I think doing it in this very small scale way to afford specific things is a very good way to build up goodwill with that core audience as well. Like having a core audience that you ask for £1,000 from and on something that you're clearly going to deliver on is just so much better for building trust than, you know, asking for £100,000 for something that you're not proven in. That's an interesting discussion, though. I think maybe the beveling is destroying the hand-drawnness a little bit. Because the beveling just doesn't suggest that kind of papercraft thing. I know we discussed the beveling earlier, but if that is part of the gimmick that even the textures are hand-drawn, then maybe we need to make that clearer. Look, we can show the mechanic here is so clearly defined that we can show it. This is great as well because I can see this having appeal in two directions, right? There's the kind of hardcore action gamer direction where they play Noita and they look at this and they go, oh, it's Noita. And then there's someone who would never play Noita and they look at this and they see a very cute interface and they go, oh, yeah, that's cozy and cute. I do think there is a bit of a... There is a slight mismatch in the fact that it is not a low peril game, right? And when people talk about games as being cozy, that is usually the kind of game design side of what they mean, is that it's not a game where you're constantly dying. But yeah, I feel like all of the bits of this game are very strong. It's just, there's certain things to do with the camera, the game feel, and maybe the level design and the way that we switch between puzzles and combat just maybe is going to need a little bit more thought. But yeah, we're straight into... Got an introduction to the project and the team. We've got a short block about the story. We've highlighted every word that has cat in. Excellent. And then straight into the unique mechanic. Right? We're not going through telling you every mechanic in the game. We're telling you the unique mechanic, the thing that is the mechanical hook. It's not even a mechanical hook that has never been done before, right? Because it's not. But it is enough to be a draw, and the interface for it looks really beautiful. And again, this is what I was saying about cards in card games. If you're going to make a card game, don't think, oh, make a card game because they're easy. It's just rectangles. No. Like, the main thing that you interact with needs to be pleasurable to interact with. If the core interaction of your game doesn't feel good as a toy, then there's not enough there to build a game out of. I think this screen is an excellent toy. I'm not so sure that using the wand in the world feels like a great toy yet. But it can do. And I have every kind of faith that they can make it work in that one. And this this is quite understated as well. It's like you're showing the art process. You haven't made a massive deal out of it, even though it's quite unique. One of the things I hate seeing in pitches, and none of these have done it, I don't think, but like when we can see the game and then in the text they tell us the art style. And it's like, oh, this is a low poly game, or this is a pixel art game. It's like, yeah, I can see a picture of it. I know, you know, but I think this is the only instance where talking about the art style is actually helpful to sell the game, because you're showing people the craft that went into it, and that is appealing to people. So the fact that this is so underplayed, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the fact that it's here at all is good, but it's quite downplayed. You haven't made a massive deal out of it, but you have told people about it. But yeah, I think that is the only case where talking about the art style is really relevant, because people can see the art style. It's so weird when people waste like whole sentences telling you the art style of the game when you can see a picture of it, right? It's kind of like, I don't know. Yeah. If you're picture blind, then it's very strange that you would be interested in that game, right? It's like... sometimes on dating apps, you see people that just describe themselves visually and they don't say anything else about themselves. They're just like, yeah, I'm medium height. I have brown hair. I've got a face. I've got shoulders. It's like, I can see all of these things from looking at a picture of you. I'm not using the Braille version of this app. It's a similar thing with video games. It's like anything that can be shown by the picture is like yeah, let the picture do the talking, and then describe the stuff that the picture's not good for, like the broader fantasy and the game mechanics. Use the words for that. I think all of the Kickstarters here have been very well put together. The actual pages for them, I don't really have much feedback on that, but yeah, I think broadly speaking, everything we've seen here today is a case of like, if you make a game that is very, very focused on a narrow thing, it's just easier to deliver something that kind of gets into a good state very quickly. And then you've got instances like this where everything's good, but it's kind of pulling in a couple of different directions. Is it supposed to be like a, Binding of Isaac, feels good to zap things and survive type game, or is it more puzzly and it's going to need some time to kind of work that out? And then, yeah, the first game just very undercooked card stuff. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that cat lady arm, but I mean, if you've got low vision, how much is knowing what the art style, how important is that information to you if your vision is low that you can't zoom in on the picture and see it? It's like, where is that point where it's like no longer relevant information to you because you can't see the difference between something being pixel art and low poly 3D or whatever? Because I imagine if you're low vision, you're going to care more about stuff like, do I have to move the camera around myself and stuff like that are more like, I don't know. It's weird. It always feels strange to describe something that is invisible in the picture in a visual medium to me. But I'm sure there will be some cases where people need that. Yeah. Might be good for SEO. Sean. Sean coming in with the business head on. It might be good for SEO. Yeah, you're right. But yeah, I would make sure it's on the page. But I definitely, if your game is in a very commonly used art style like pixel art, low poly or something, as Sean says, probably good for SEO to put that somewhere. I wouldn't put it in the first two sentences though, and I'm not saying that they haven't done that here, but it's always something that I look out for. I mean, let me. I always used to use this as an example of how to write good marketing copy for a game. This is really interesting. So this is Ape Out's marketing copy, right? Stylish escape, embrace bold colors and a dazzling perspective. It focuses on the way that the aesthetic is supposed to make you feel. But it doesn't tell us the technical names of things. See, if you were just to describe Ape Out normally, you would say it is a brightly coloured game inspired by the 1960s artwork of Saul Bass, right? You would say it's the kind of the visual style is low poly, and the sort of aesthetic style is 1960s Saul Bass. And you would use those terms if you were just describing this. But that's not what they've done in the marketing copy. They've just described how that makes you feel. They've used words like dazzling and bold, emotive terms, right? I'm not sure if describing the game as low poly or influenced by Saul Bass would be a helpful thing for someone from an accessibility point of view. So I do think accessibility is important. I just think if someone can't see an image of a game, even when they zoom in on it, then how would it help them to know whether that's pixel art or hand drawn or something? I think it does hurt to include it because I think it looks like you don't understand your own game. What's a and the way I would I quote unquote prove this would be to say, let's look at some very successful pixel art games. Oh look, it has pixel graphics as a Steam tag. It doesn't mention pixel graphics in the description, right? So you've got a place to put that already. The description, this is the other thing that I've always told people about writing descriptions of their game. And this is totally different from a Kickstarter, right? Because in a Kickstarter, you've got a whole page. And in a Kickstarter, you can write this kind of thing as the top level fantasy. And then further down, you can go into detail and you can talk about the art style and how the art was made and stuff like that. But on a very small piece of marketing copy when you don't have much space, I would always encourage people to focus on doing what they're doing here, talking to the audience as if they're already the character in the game. It's a very easy shortcut. You've inherited your grandfather's old farm plot in Stardew Valley. Not, in this game, you play as someone who has just inherited a farm plot. It's kind of like doing the call to action trick, but taking it another level by basically just pretending that the person reading it is already a character in the game. Yeah, I'm not saying don't mention it at all, but when you've got like 3 sentences, maybe not the best thing to do. Because it again, look, all of these kind of high indie games, Dredge is a single-player fishing adventure with a sinister undercurrent. Then we immediately switch to talking to us like we're already playing the game. Sell the catch, upgrade your boat, and dredge the depths for long-buried secrets. Explore a mysterious archipelago and discover why some things are best left forgotten. We have 1-sentence top-level description of the game. Then we're straight into what you're doing. Then we've got a mood sentence. Explore a mysterious archipelago. Mysterious, mood-driven stuff. No mention of it being a painterly, low-poly game or something like that. Yeah. So, I think where we've rested on is it's not a cardinal sin to include the art style. I was really just saying that you shouldn't lead with it, right? Which is what I was saying at the beginning. And I think... the reason I thought that in relation to Wizards, Whiskers, and Wands was, I think this is the only, these are the kind of situations. I think these are the only kind of situations where it makes sense to put the art style up front. When there is an element of human craft that is going to make people gravitate towards the game more. And games that do that are hand-drawn games and claymation games, I guess. These are the types of games where I think putting the art style up front makes a bit more sense. Look at lovely Harold Halibut. Look how beautiful it is. A handmade narrative game. A game all about Adrian Brody being an underwater claymation man. Yeah, leading with verbs is a good shout. I've been playing this on the PlayStation because it's free on the Game Pass at the moment. But yeah, I think games like that where there's a very, very unusual art style that isn't usually used in games, that is a hook, right? So you can put that in the first sentence. But I think Wizards, Whiskers, and Wands could front load its hand-drawnness a little bit more, is what I'm saying in this case. It's tagged as hand-drawn. Yeah, let's look at Hyperdemon's marketing copy. Actually, I still haven't played this. I've played games like it. Such a gorgeous game. Oh yeah, okay. So I was going to say you would describe it using the term psychedelic or something, right? Again, you would focus on, because the visual style of Hyperdemon, it's very similar to stuff like the movie Annihilation, like the way that does its psychedelia. It's even the same sort of... It's this kind of vibe, right? This kind of like pastel chrome, Y2K, kind of Lawnmower Man, 90s cyber psychedelia stuff. But what they've done here, a pearl of lightning, a dream from the future, a drop of poison, a swan song. The faster you slay demons, the harder the game and the higher your score. There is an end. Will it see you? Deliberately weird. Why? Because this is a cool countercultural game for edgy people. And edgy people don't want to read a description that feels like a normal Steam. They want to feel like they're playing something something strange and unusual. So you just write this like you're being like you're Bjork, right? What would Bjork write if Bjork was writing a Steam description? I don't know, probably something about pearls, something about lightning. I don't know. Chat GPT prompts. Can you rewrite it like something Bjork would say, please? Yeah, now take out the capital letters. Okay, thanks. Hi, Catherine Davis. No, I have no intention of interacting with you on Discord. But thank you for saying, I hope you enjoy your streaming. I have enjoyed my streaming, thank you. Hope you've enjoyed my streaming. I love how Catherine Davis just uses her full name on every platform. Yeah, but this is... Okay, so we're really falling down a rabbit hole here, Tommy. The difference between an aesthetic and an art style, right?
You are no longer an individual of flesh.
Because Y2K is an aesthetic, and that is something that people have an emotional attachment to. Whereas the broad, like, art method of doing pixel art or low poly is not something people have an emotional attachment to, right? So, for example, with pixel art, people have emotional attachments to particular types of pixel art. There are people that like pixel art that prefer something that looks like polished SNES pixel art from 1992, and people that prefer like something that looks like a cruddy Flash game from 2005. And those are not the same people, right? So when you talk about the aesthetic, you're tapping into someone's like emotional associations with that thing. And things like kawaii or Y2K, that's not an art style. That's like that's a thing. People don't have an emotional attachment to an art style. They have an emotional attachment to an aesthetic as a broad cultural thing. So I would think about that distinction a little bit, because low poly, not really an aesthetic. Low poly is a tool. Low poly is a method. When you start to make certain color choices with low poly or depict certain objects with low poly, then it starts to become an aesthetic, right? So you can make a game that is kawaii that uses low poly, right? Katamari is an example of a kawaii game where kawaii is the aesthetic and low poly is just the way that is achieved as a graphical tool. So I would think about that distinction. And sorry if that has been a very quick fly through of that distinction, but something to think about. Pixel art, a broad term, applying to a tool. Low poly, a broad term applying to a tool. That's why I think those terms are not very exciting to include as part of your hook when you're talking about your game. But an aesthetic like cozy, kawaii, grungy, you know, a lot of the games that are using like PlayStation 1 low poly at the moment, they're using it to create a particular mood and aesthetic, and that's this kind of like grungy, low res Silent Hill thing. And people aren't excited about that because they see something and they go, oh, that character has so few polys. I love how few polys they have. They like the level of abstraction and how it creates a particular mood. They like how it makes them feel, right?
I'm not the victim, I am.
People that just play games and don't make them, they look at this and it's how it makes them feel. It's how that makes them scared or whatever. And like the emotional effect that achieves. They don't just go around playing every game that is made with this art style because they really like it when a pillar only has 4 faces or when a character has rectangular limbs. That's not the thing they're into. They're into the emotional part of that, you know? Yeah, PSX is an aesthetic that uses low poly. Yeah, exactly. And it's stronger for certain genres because it creates a particular mood. Right, I'm going to log off now, guys, because this cold is kicking my butt. But thank you all for joining today. If you liked any of those games, go and give them a bit of support. Yeah. All of them had strong things going for them. It's just a matter of like, where is the rest of the work, you know? And I think the Cardboard Box game, they've got such a clear roadmap. That's such an easy game to just sort of work out what the rest of the game is. The other ones have more to do in terms of refining certain bits of it and everything. Sorry we're closed is cool. Yeah. Thank you for joining, and I will see you soon.